Have you ever wondered how to make a game dev cry? Me too, so today we're gonna find out by making several towers that spin whenever the player hits them. I'm sure this will go super well and I won't have any issues at all. So the first thing that I'm gonna get started with is getting this base sprite drawn. After a few hours, I got this done and I'm fairly happy with it. I didn't want to make it look like the spinny tower that's in Shovel Knight, so at first I just tried making it out of stone. But it was extremely plain, and when I went to try to detail it, it looked really weird and extremely low detail. So I ended up deciding that I would try making it out of wood. The very first wood style that I tried was the scaffolding style, but as you can see, it looks absolutely terrible. Instead, I decided to try combining wood and stone together, and I think it looks a lot better than the other two concepts. It's basically just a stone pillar with wood around it, but the wood is rotting so you can see through some of it and see some of the stone. The next thing is animating this stupid thing. So after a few hours, I've been really struggling to animate this thing. No matter what I did, I could not get it to look like it was rotating. So I ended up coming up with the idea of putting shadows on the side, and that did help a lot, but it still did not look like it was rotating. So a little while later, after I committed arson, took a break, I ended up having the idea that if this was real life, then there would probably be wood behind it because, well, it's a circle. Now after many hours, I finally got the back rotating, and I do think it is a really big improvement compared to before. Now I'm gonna go ahead and move on to animating the rest of this thing so that it loops properly. So after about 4 hours of animating, I ended up with a total of 62 frames, which is way too much. Now the reason that is way too many frames is because I have to do all of this stuff that's currently on screen on every single frame, and it would just be way too much work to do. So I decided that the best course of action would be to burn half the frames, and that should make it a whole lot more manageable. Now that got it down to a total of 31 frames, and that is way better than it was before, but there is one issue. The wood lines in the shadows look kinda weird because they're so bright. So what I ended up deciding was that I would painstakingly go through each and every frame and manually make the wood lines darker. It was painful, but I got it done and it definitely makes it look way better. So the next thing that I'm gonna do is actually make this thing work. Now since I've never made anything like this before, I'm sure it's gonna go super well and I won't have any issues at all. The first thing that I started with was getting it to detect the player attack. Then I also got some really basic movement working. This stuff actually went pretty smooth, believe it or not, but from this point on, not so much. I wanted to make it so that before the tower hit max height, it would slow down the animation and movement speed a little bit to make it look a little bit more smooth. But it turned out that that would end up being a lot harder than I expected. At first I tried changing the movement and animation speeds through code, but I could not get the animations to be in sync with the movement speed, so I was trying to think of another way to do that, and I remembered something. I remember hearing that some people use animation curves to change variables like movement and animation speed. Now I've never used animation curves like that, so it's definitely going to be a bit of a challenge to try to figure out how to do that. The first curve that I tried was one that speeds up then slows down the animation and movement speed, but the animations were still out of sync. At this point, I was like 2 hours into this, so I decided just to go ahead and take a break. Just like you should stop taking a break from not liking this video and subscribing. Also, there is a demo in the description if you want to try the game out. Now, back to the video. Now, I'm done taking a break, and I believe I have come up with an idea on how to fix this issue. The idea is that there's 3 different animations. One is going from idle to full speed, then the other is only full speed, then the last one would be from full speed all the way down to none. I kind of figured that this would probably work, so I went ahead and gave it a shot. And about 1 hour later, I finally got it working correctly. Here it is in action. You can hit the wheel and it goes up, then if you let it sit a little while, it slowly goes back down. I am really happy with how this turned out and that's working correctly. Next is getting the secondary towers working that are controlled by the main tower. Basically how these guys work is whenever the player hits the wheel on the main tower, these 2 towers will separate, then the player can just move on through. Now I don't have an animation for either tower right now, and that's gonna be a lot of work, so I think for now I'm just gonna go ahead and try to get them working. I decided to start with the bottom tower, and basically all that I did was copy the movement script from the main tower onto this one. The main difference is that I added a delay between when you actually hit the wheel and when it actually starts moving the tower. The first time I tested the bottom tower, I was kinda confused because it didn't move. But then I realized that I did a big dumb and didn't set the animation curve correctly in the animator. The reason that it was doing that was because it was looking for the old script that's on the main tower when technically this is a different script. So I went ahead and fixed that and now it's working as intended. Now the next one is the top tower, and this one was a bit tricky to say the least. At first I was having a really hard time trying to get it to move, but after some fiddling around, I got it to work. But then I realized I kinda made a mistake and that the top pillar should actually be going up while the bottom one should actually be going down. Otherwise they just kinda merged together, so what I did was just switch them around and rename them real quick, and that solved that issue. Now that they're working correctly, there's a problem where if you jump in between them and didn't move, they would crush you and you'd kinda like merge into them. Now obviously this is intended behavior, but to avoid players getting confused, I decided that I would make it to where it kills you instead of you getting crushed. So how I decided to go about this issue is at the end of each tower there is a collider, and if the player touches both colliders then they die. It was a pretty simple fix and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, so I think it's time to actually go ahead and animate the secondary towers. Now when I started animating the secondary towers, I realized that I made a fatal mistake when animating the main tower. If the tower moves up too far, then you can clearly see that it's not long enough. So before I started animating the secondary towers, I wanted to make the main tower longer. I was trying to decide if I wanted to do like 2 times the length or if I wanted to go like way overboard and do like 3 times the length. After some thinking, I decided that it really wouldn't be that much more work to just go 3 times the length, so I think I'm gonna go ahead and go with that option. While I was working on extending the tower, it seemed a whole lot easier to draw this time than the first time. I believe this is because I have a reference unlike before. When I got the back and the front wood done, I was trying to think of the easiest way to animate the stone pillar. I decided that the easiest way would probably just be to copy what's existing already and paste it a couple times. It's really hard to tell that it's exactly the same because it's behind all the wood. Now I'm done animating it, and I believe the last thing to do is draw the dark lines in the shadows. So I just got done drawing those lines and I want to die. You would think that such a simple task would be fast and not very exhausting, but you would be completely wrong. It was very exhausting, but it had to be done and it turned out pretty good. Next is actually getting the secondary towers that have an animation. How I'm gonna animate these is that I'm literally going to take the already existing sprite and flip it upside down and put a base on the bottom of that. It turned out pretty good, and I went ahead and imported it into Unity, and when I was putting the animation together I also added one little bitty touch in start. Now when the game starts, it randomly changes the rotation of each tower. This makes it so that I don't have to have a different animation for each tower, which cuts down the work a whole lot. I believe that was the last thing I needed to add to the tower. I'm extremely happy with how it turned out, but there is one major change that I would like to make in the future. I would like to make it to where whenever the tower goes down, it spins left instead of right, but that's kind of complicated with how I have the animation set up right now, so hopefully in the future I can fix that. Other than that, it turned out pretty good and I'm pretty happy with it. I do have one question for you guys though. Comment down below how long you think it took me to make this tower. Alright, now that the people that aren't gonna cheat have commented, I'm gonna tell you the answer. I started on the tower in January, so it has been 5 months at the time of recording, and when I work on stuff I always record it, so I have a pretty good idea of how long it took me. I have a total of 20 hours of footage for this, and I know that there is at least 2 or 3 hours that I did not record. So yeah. It took a lot of time. So if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and also there is a demo in the description if you want to try the game out. The towers will not be in it yet because I have to go through and update all the levels to add them. Also, if you have any ideas on how I can improve the game, please tell me in the comments. Here on the left is the last quest devlog, and if you want to watch all the quest devlogs in order, right here on the right is the quest devlog playlist. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye!